After going 3-0, the Colorado Buffaloes lost to Oregon, but a lot of people did not like how they've handled things. We're going to tell you about the state of the Buffaloes next on the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your boy, Damian Parson, always on the ones and twos. You can find and follow me on Twitter at DP_NFL. My national scout over with the Draft Network, as well as the host of the Locked On Clemson podcast. Guys, happy Wednesday, and thank y'all for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Thank you guys, and shout out to you for being our everydays. But I got to kick it over to my partner in crime, Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on Twitter at The Talent Code. Keep talk to him, baby.
What's up, Locked On family? This is Keith Sanchez, senior draft analyst with the Draft Network, man, and 2019 national champ with those LSU Tigers, man. But you know why we're here, right? We're here to bring you that championship level content surrounding the NFL draft 24/7, 365, whether that's, draft content, whether that's draft philosophies, right? We bring it all, even draft strategy. And DP, for the slate today, man, like we said, we're going to talk about those Colorado Buffaloes. What is the state? What is the expectation what is the true expectation for the Colorado Buffaloes, man? Then we get into Dames, dude. And then, like we said, we talk strategy, right? So we're going to talk Coach K's key thought. And I have a little strategy that might boost a couple of these NFL teams. So make sure y'all stay tuned this entire show. But DP, let's kick this thing off. Coach Prime, Shedeur Sanders, right? Shiloh Sanders, Travis Hunter, man, all eyes have been on the University of Colorado, and they lost this week. But DP, I want to ask you, because it's been on Twitter, right? It's a seesaw type of situation of the support versus the non-support. They got blown out, right? They got blown out by Oregon. It was a 21-point spread, I believe, and I believe they covered, right? So DP, I want to ask you, what is the true expectations of this Colorado team?
I think the expectations for this team is to win like 6, maybe 7 games. I don't know why. Like I do know why, right? And let's call a spade a spade. The media is what the media is. It builds you up, right? The media builds you up like architects build up a building. And then that same architect tells this guy with I forget the name of the machine, right? You know what I mean? With the ball off the, and they just knocked out the buildings down. I forget what it's called. The wrecking ball, right? You know what I mean? Like, and they call it, hey, knock it down. And that's what they do. And I think that's what happened. People said they couldn't beat TCU. They didn't believe Shedeur Sanders was a real NFL draftable quarterback, right? All of these didn't believe, and then they made you believe, right? Then the fact that Prime is so boisterous, he will call you out. He will hold you accountable in the media for anything that you say. And I think 6 games is a very good. This is a team that won one game last year, Keith. And I remember watching a video. I think it was after the first game. It was either after the first game or after the Nebraska game. And one of the players that was still on the team from last year, remember, Prime came in and said, hey, I'm bringing my Louis, I'm bringing my luggage. Whoever's not here, you can go ahead and go. Well, this young man stayed. And I think he was a white defensive back, I think. And the young man just was like, man, just talking about how different it felt because he's so used to losing at that school. And he just like, man, it feels good to win. So setting that winning culture. But just setting that winning culture, Keith, does not mean you're going to win 8 to 9 games this year. This team still isn't good in terms of talent. The trenches, anybody that's listening to Locked On Clemson, I tell Clemson fans all the time, games are won and lost in the trenches, Keith. And where do they struggle the most? In the trenches, Keith, on the offensive line and the defensive line. So when you look at the state of the Buffaloes, they're headed in the right direction. Everybody's got to pump the brakes, all right? They got whooped by Oregon. A lot of y'all were happy about it. Okay, cool. They're probably going to get whooped again by USC. Be happy about that too. But they're going to win a couple more games, and they're going to have a successful season. Then Prime gets to go on the recruiting trail and get some dogs on the front lines that will help them run the ball, stop the run, and get after the passer and protect his passer.
Yeah, so DP, I'll go with this. This is my perspective, right? Even with Deion Sanders taking a job, and we talked about it before, just the hierarchy of where Jackson State was and the hierarchy of HBCUs and being, kind of, I guess, one of the top tier HBCUs versus this Colorado program being one of the bottom tier schools in the Pac-12, right? And how it's going to be a much more difficult situation. Now, this is where it comes in, right? Like you said, the media hype, right? Because essentially they almost had no business doing what they were doing, right? And then also it's the casual fan hype, right? That doesn't fully understand the multiple layers that it comes when it comes to talent, right? Like obviously I've won a national championship, right? So I know with good football teams look like, right? And you have to check a lot of boxes, DP, throughout that entire process. And when you look at it and you say, okay, Shedeur Sanders is a solid, solid quarterback. Then Travis Hunter, and then they have the running back, right? And then they have Shiloh. Okay, that's 4 people out of 22 people, right? And that's just 22. That's not even the 30 that has to play when it comes into different formations and subbing people out and different personnel groupings. So we know 4 of the 30, right? That's potentially drafted. Well, DP, we talked about it. When you go against the Oregons, the Ohio States, right? So Colorado on the entire roster, so you go 1 through 100, right? They may have 5 to 10 people that's going to play in the NFL. Ohio State, and not talking about their starters, but their entire roster, they probably have 70, 75 people that's going to play in the NFL at some
17
point. 17
of them are wide receivers, Keith.
Yeah. So the talent discrepancy, DP, is just widening. Now, I appreciate what Coach Prime was able to do, and I wish them continued success. Now, the other part is this. People are going to be like, man, they talk so much trash, right? And they do, right? But at the end of the day, they have to own it, right? Like y'all may have put the cart in front of the horse, because this is what I didn't like, DP, and this is what it was cringing to me when I heard it, right? And they were talking about the Colorado Buffaloes as a team of like the culture, right? In the sense of the fact of they were going to represent something new in college football, right? And they referenced that Michigan team, the Fab Five, right? They referenced Fab Five, and it was another like the U in the '80s, right? How they evolved and revolutionized college football. But DP, the key, and this is why I say putting the cart before the horse, was that those teams won first, right? Like it wasn't Michigan didn't go 3-0, and then Jalen Rose and Chris Webber and Juwan Howard became instant legends, right? They had to go deep tournament runs back-to-back years before we said, hold on, this is something legendary that we're looking at, right? We went 3 games, where they beat a TCU DP, a TCU team that we said, hey, they lost a lot of people, right? They beat a TCU team. Then they beat a Nebraska team that's just not that doggone good and haven't been good for a pretty long time since they fired Bo Pelini, right? But we'll get into that for another podcast. And then they beat a Colorado State team, which they barely beat, right? There was no sequential order, right? It went straight from underrated to overrated, right? Or straight from, the outhouse straight to the penthouse, right? And you skipped all of those steps in between. And that was the part that kind of got to me. So you asked me the state of the Buffalo Colorado's, DP. I'm going to just simply put it like this, man. They're a team with a new head coach, right? That's going to garner attention. And then they're going to have to get better year after year. I always say with DP, and in our conversations, right? I didn't say we won the national championship in 2019. I say that started in 2016, 2017, right? Like it takes a couple years to be able to build something, to be able to get it to that point. So they're a building team.
No, and they are, Keith. And I think that's what everybody just has to, that's just pump the brakes. Prime even said that we're not where we need to be yet. I can't wait to see what this team looks like, Keith, with Shedeur Sanders more than likely coming back for another year, right? Him and Travis Hunter more than likely enter the NFL draft together in 2025, right? Both could be potential top 10 picks, Keith. But how can you get there as well as then have success at the college football level as a team? They got to get better on both sides of the ball in certain areas, right? Because they got a nice little jitter back, scat back in the backfield that we saw week 1. He had over 100 yards receiving and all. He's explosive. He's fast, dynamic, but you can't run him because you can't run the ball.
I would ask you the other question, DP. What is success for Colorado, right? I think that's another thing that we have to put. Are we putting the threshold at championship in 2-3 years, right? Like winning the college. I think that's far fetched, right? Like
Got to win the
that's
Pac-12 first.
right. And so is
Well,
Pac-12 if Coach
it won't be
Prime
the
and
Pac-12 after next year, but
yeah, well, the big they're being the Big 12, right? So
the Big 12,
is
yeah.
winning the Big 12 like ultimate success for them, or is it just winning back-to-back seasons of 9 games? So I think so much stuff happened, man. And you look at ESPN First Take going down there, you're looking at Pat McAfee,
Master
right?
P on
Doing
the
an interview.
sideline,
And
Lil
then
Wayne rapping to bring him out to the
yeah,
game,
and to be completely honest, right? Like some of this was brought on by them also, right? Like they and it's part of it's a double-edged sword
it's a
because
fact.
when you're recruiting, right? I want my recruits to come when Lil Wayne is there, right? When I have Offset there, when I have all of these celebrities coming to the game to show a great atmosphere, right? But also what comes with that, DP, is the attention, right? And then now the expectation, and then you start to get variance emotions towards your team. So DP, I think that was a dope conversation, man. I think we kind of outlaid it properly, right? Like because we try to avoid the fluff stuff and get down to the nitty-gritty and kind of call it out for what it is and just have the detailed, in-depth conversations, in revolving football topics, right? And I think that's exactly what we did with the Colorado Buffaloes. So if you ask me, DP, I expect some more wins and I expect some more losses, right? That's just probably what's going to happen. It is college football at the end of the day. But DP, it's your time to shine, baby. It's your time to shine, man. We coming up next, man. We get our weekly segment of Dame's Dudes, and it's his segment. But I like it because I get to put him on the spot. So, man, y'all make sure y'all to stay tuned because I'm putting DP in the hot seat.
Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Football host Vinny Iyer to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week all season long. Whether you're prepping for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So let's see who Vinny has picked out for us on this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. Jaguars wide receiver Calvin Ridley has the classic rebound and revenge opportunity in London in Week 4 Sunday matchup against his former team, the Falcons. Ridley has been very quiet with Jacksonville's passing game slumping the past 2 weeks, but he will return more to his stellar Week 1 debut form for his new team. The Jaguars will do a better job of scheming him open across the pond and making his massive target volume from Trevor Lawrence count big time once again. Vinny Iyer from Locked On Fantasy Football is going to help you win your fantasy championship. And eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof racks, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time. The first time around, every time around, or special, you get your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, guys, not cash. So understand this, guys. Keep your number one, your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com because eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. It's time to find out who will or will not be this week's Dame's Dudes. Keith, let's get it kicked off.
DP, we had Notre Dame versus Ohio State, right? So we had some trash talk, right? Like post game by the head coach. Then we had what else? We had a last second touchdown, right? Touchdown Jesus with Notre Dame and their thing. But it was Ohio State that pulled the game off and they scored on a last second touchdown. But the guy that you can say kind of orchestrated that was Kyle McCord, their quarterback. So are you in on Kyle McCord, DP? Don't let your facial expression say it. Are you in on Kyle McCord and him being able to lead this Ohio State team? Is he in the club or not of being a winner, being able to lead this Ohio State team to the promised land?
Very strong final drive. Like he really showed a lot on that drive. and a lot of like just toughness and grit and just keeping his foot on the pedal, right?
All the things that get you in the club,
No, yeah, no. Those things do get you in the club for a full game's length of doing it to get you in the club. Because he was part of the reason why they were struggling in that game. You know what I mean? Like, God, Kyle, like, what are we doing? But no, I need to see more from. I need to see a complete game from him. I felt like, and the reason why I'm not going to say I'm totally out on him, like some people were tweeting out. I think we remember CJ Stroud's first start at Minnesota night game. It was tough for Stroud, right? Yeah, and people were like, bring in Quinn. People were tweeting out, go get the jet and bring Quinn from Texas or, wherever he was at the time. Go get him from Ohio State and bring him to the game. And then we saw CJ Stroud materialize into a top 3 pick in the NFL draft, right? Not saying that's going to happen with Kyle McCord, but I do think that we need to exercise a little bit of patience with him. I think that was kind of that, okay, the trainer wheels are off. I fell a lot in that game, but I was able to find my stride and get the pedals going to get us a done. He's not in the club yet, but I say exercise some patience. I want to see more from him. Ask me in a couple of weeks. If he keeps playing like that, then he'll never get in there.
All right, man. We're going up next, man. Up next, man. This is your neck of the woods somewhat, right? I told you North Carolina, South Carolina, they almost the same thing.
Yeah, I'm a Carolina.
They're just Carolinas, right? But Duke is in there, right? And Duke has a quarterback that is an NFL prospect, man. I'm talking about Riley Leonard. So DP, week 1, he defeated Clemson, right? And then not only, he did okay throwing the football, 50% completion percentage, but you're talking about 8 rushes for 98 yards, almost 100 yards on the ground. Then he followed that up, DP, 2 weeks later, Northwestern, right? He threw for 219, efficient game. And then he went 13 carries for 97 yards. So I don't know if you want to call him a dual threat, right? But he's definitely a mobile quarterback. He has Duke 4-0, and then they have a big matchup this weekend. But DP, I want to ask you, Riley Leonard, is he in Dame's Dudes Club or is he out?
Right now, I'm gonna put Riley Leonard in. He is a dual threat quarterback, and I was telling Clemson fans all offseason, listen, you got to contain him. Like they will run some QB power, QB draw, and he would just create on his own. And we saw that in that game. You know what I mean? Barrett Carter couldn't bring him down, and he went for 40 something and got a touchdown, a big touchdown that gave them momentum and gave them the lead in that game. So he has a good arm. He has the arm talent. I think he's accurate. Like you talked about, he's efficient, right? The main thing you want to see from him now is, all right, can you carry – if teams kind of cage rush you, mush rush you, as we say in the South, where they stay in their lanes, they slow rush you, and they just close the wall slowly around you, can you win from the pocket and carry the offense from the pocket with your shoulder, with your arm, right? And things like that. And I think – the potential is there, but you need to see it. And he's going to have some big-time games with the opportunity to do so. And if he does that, he's probably going to have himself a VIP section in Dame's Dudes.
All right, I'm good with that. Let's keep it going, DP. I'm about to read off some stats real quick, right? 4 weeks, they played 4 games. They have 4 games of college football. And I'm going to read off this wide receiver stats real quick, and then we can get your opinion on this, right? Boise State, 7 receptions for 132 yards and a touchdown. Tulsa, 7 receptions, 107 yards, and a touchdown. Michigan State, 8 receptions for 180 yards. Then Cal, he went 5 receptions, 125 yards, and 2 touchdowns. DP, who am I talking about? I am talking about Washington wide receiver Rome Odunze. I think that's how you say the last name, right?
Yep.
But DP, this is a guy that had hype coming into the season. And I'll be honest, and this is my opinion, right? I liked him, wasn't sure I was in love with him yet, right? But he's balling. I read off the numbers. He's well over 500 yards already with Michael Penix throwing football. I think it's safe to say he's going to touch 1,000 yards easily. But I want to ask DP, from where you're at, is Rome Odunze in the – I'm going to get a little bit more specific with him. Is he in the first round club?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's in that kind of in the 20 range, more than likely. He's worked himself in there, man. He's been on the tear. You know what I mean? You see the speed, you see the ball tracking ability, but then also he can return punts and kicks.
Yeah, that was special to do that at 6'3", 212. And I remember, I can't remember what wide receiver for the Titans. The wide receiver the Titans had a wide receiver. I was messing it up. The Titans had a wide receiver that was like 6'1", 6'2" at one point.
Washington?
I can't remember. No, I can't. It was a couple years ago. I can't remember exactly who it was, but he was a bigger wide receiver, and it reminded me of that. But continue, DP. Continue.
No, I mean, just he's the I don't even know if he's the go-to target because like Penix spreads the ball around.
Yeah, he
Polk,
does.
number 2, gets the ball. Jalen McMillan gets the ball. All those guys that have 100 yards if you sleep the wrong way. You know what I mean? Like you got to get a good night's rest, man. If you really want to stop that offense, but I think with him, man, he's definitely in that first round, late first round club. A lot of people want to put him, in the same tier as MHJ, Marvin Harrison Jr. Yep, can't do that. I don't think that's fair to him. But I do think that Rome Odunze is a baller. He's showing that, right? Smooth route runner as well for a big guy, right? He kind of got some good stop and start ability, can create separation. The main thing I want to see from him is whenever they get into the better defenses in the Pac-12, can he handle the physicality when those DBs walk up on him? He's always been a little bit more finesse in terms of beating press coverage and trying to avoid punches and everything rather than fighting through with his hands and different things like that. So I just want to keep my eyes on that.
Okay, well, DP, listen, I just finished talking about Roma Dunes, right? But we have Roma Dunes, we have Malik Neighbors, we have Keon Coleman, right? All of these wide receivers vying for the number 2 wide receiver spot coming into the season. There was one wide receiver, right? And you just talked about Marvin Harrison Jr. Look how all this is playing together. Marvin Harrison Jr.'s running mate, Emeka Egbuka, right? And I'm not going to ask you, once again, I'm not going to ask you if you like him, right? This is a first-round conversation. Is he still holding strong? Because there's so many contenders, right? This is unlike last year where there's a lot of disappointing performances by wide receivers and things kind of fail. These wide receivers are showing out, right? We pegged them early, and they are performing. So I want to ask Emeka Egbuka, right? Is he still in that top of the first round, at them top 20 picks for you? Because the production hasn't been there, but, I mean, we talked about the quarterback situation. So I want to ask you, is he still there with the rest of the guys that have been performing well? Do you feel like there's a chance for him to lose a little ground because of the level that these other guys are playing at?
I think he's still in there for me. Excuse me. I think he's still in there, Keith, because like the talent is there, man. Route running, speed, right? He's got good contact balance. Is he like one thing he's not the best at is like the catch point? That's not his skill set, right? But he separates with ease. He said that speed is legitimate, and he's a yak. He can be a yak monster if you give him the football early. And I think for him, scouts are gonna look at the tape. We know what he did last year, right? With a good quarterback. And if Kyle McCord can't get it together, people are going to look at him like, well, it is what it is. So I think he is still in that top 20 type of range. But, I mean, at the end of the day, we know that production does matter. And other guys are producing at a higher clip than he is right now. So they absolutely can leapfrog him in certain draft rooms.
Yeah, I can't wait for this to continue to play out, right? It's week 4. That's how football season does for you, right? Like you're excited for it to get here. And then you try to jump to certain spots, right? And then by the time you know it's over with, because you're trying to get these data points and you want to see these high-level games. So I'm excited for this wide receiver 2, 3, 4, 5 conversation to play out, because a lot of talented guys, like I said, that are putting up numbers and just throughout this whole draft process, right? Because you got the rest of the season, then we get into 40 times, then we get into pro days, then we get into senior bowls. So we have so much stuff, man, that's going to play out, that's going to make this an exciting conversation all draft season long. But DP, let's keep this thing going and flowing, man. And I think he's about to pass the rock to me, right? Because I have a key thought, right? So coming up next, man, is Coach K's key thought, coming up right after this.
With storms, shortages, pandemics, reliance on overseas travel, and supply chain issues, we need to be prepared now more than we ever have been for the unexpected. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during those unexpected times and moments. That's why Jace Medical offers the Jace Case. The Jace Case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you a peace of mind so that you're not just hoping to have access to the medication in an emergency. Jace Medical makes sure you have the medication in hand. Jace Medical is simple, guys. They handle everything from online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. Get $20 off of these life-saving antibiotics today with Jace Medical by using the promo code Locked On at checkout and on jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. All right, Coach K, bring us home. Tell us what the key thought of the week is.
DP, the Locked On family. The key thought is this: Titans, do yourself a favor. Trade Ryan Tannehill, and this is not a Ryan Tannehill conversation. This is like I said, because we talk strategy, right? So this is I don't even plan on this is not even a hot take. Trade Ryan Tannehill, and the reason I'm saying is this: that you're keeping yourself in a middle ground, right? Where you don't know what the future is like. And you're like, Keith, what do you mean? You have two quarterbacks, right? Both with strong arms that are both athletic, right? That you spent a third round pick on, then you spent a second round pick on, right? So neither one of these guys are playing right now because you have a veteran quarterback in Ryan Tannehill. That if you felt that strongly about Ryan Tannehill, you probably wouldn't have spent back-to-back top 100 picks on a quarterback trying to find a solution. So the thing is this: both of those quarterbacks, Malik Willis, Ryan Tannehill, both row, right? This is a talented quarterback class that is coming up, DP. So if you're sitting at a top 10 pick, you don't want to sit there and say, hey, I have Malik Willis, who I spent the third round pick on, Will Levis, who I spent the second round pick on, and I have no idea if we should draft a quarterback or not, right? Because if you draft another quarterback, then now there's wasted draft capital, DP, with your third round pick and a second round pick, top 100 picks in back-to-back drafts that could probably help fix your offensive line, right? So that's the other issue. And then Ryan Tannehill, call the New York Jets. The Jets need him. Just give them up. The Jets need them. Call the New York Jets. So DP, my key thought is this: that at some point the Titans have to fully commit to something, right? They tried to do this proper. I feel like this proper transition, right, to where we have the veteran, and then we draft the right guy at quarterback, and then eventually he beats him out, and then now we have a quarterback for the next 10 years. Well, guess what? That usually doesn't work, right? So now you're in the real world. And the real world is this: that you're 1-2. Right, your run game couldn't get going. Your offensive line is not that good. You have a solid defense. You have Mike Vrabel, who's shown to be somewhat impatient, right? A new general manager, right? And a second-round quarterback and a third-round quarterback and an aging quarterback. Figure this out. It is pure dysfunction at this point. It is undermined dysfunction. I feel like if they were in a much bigger market, this would be a much bigger problem. Because they're in Nashville, nobody's talking about it that much. But that's my key thought, DP. Go ahead. Trade Ryan Tannehill to the New York Jets. Let New York have him. You move on because you have to figure it out because this is a talented quarterback class, and you don't want to be sitting with a top 10 pick and potentially pass up on, a Drake May or Michael Penix or one of these guys that you feel really good about because you still want to see what's going on with Malik Willis and Will Levis.
I love this thought. Because
there we go.
As you were starting it, and you said trade him, the first team popped in my mind was like, it's got to be the New York Jets. Like, because you got Joe Namath coming out saying it's disgusting to watch Zach Wilson. When your franchise quarterback of all time says it's disgusting to watch this guy throw the football and play quarterback, you got to listen to you got to have the ears. And you got Robert Saleh out there at the podium fighting for his life to say Zach Wilson's our guy. Like, it was beating him up to say that, Keith.
Mm-hmm. It was.
So, like, I love that. I love the thought from that aspect. And I also love it from this. Learn from your former OC, Arthur Smith. What did Arthur Smith do last year? He stuck with Marcus Mariota far too long instead of letting Desmond Ridder take the reins and see what Desmond Ridder was for him. Right? Because if you give Desmond Ridder 10 games and he's not good and you don't like what you see, then you can use that pick and try to move up and go get Anthony Richardson or CJ Stroud.
And DP, the problem is you don't have not one guy you're trying to figure it out. You have two guys. You have two top 100 players on your route. So when I look at that, and then this is the thing. I've said it. I'm about to say it again. When they drafted Will Levis, they obviously didn't evaluate Malik Willis. Because they're the Batman meme. They have the same exact problems, right? They have the big arms. They're athletic, right? Sometimes they're late on reads. They don't make all the throws they're supposed to make. Sometimes they don't go through all their progressions, and sometimes their athleticism gets them in trouble. That is the Cliff Notes version of Malik Willis and Will Levis, right? And so that's why I say that you need reps, because you need to figure this thing out on who is going to be a starter quarterback, or if you just missed on both guys. Maybe you missed on both guys and it's time to wash your hands and go draft a guy.
No, 100%. I think, that's like you said, you don't want to put yourself, you want to give one of these guys, maybe both, the opportunity to show you what they have for 10 plus games. That's what I would want. I want 10 plus games for whoever so that I can see what I need to do next draft. Because if it is, okay, say it's Will Levis, say it, or Malik Willis. If you feel like you have that guy going into next draft and your team is like your record is bad, right? Say you're finishing top 3 and somebody wants to come up for one of these quarterbacks and you're comfortable with what you have. You can trade down and take picks, get a king's ransom for that, and
DP,
build this team up.
The threshold is not that high, DP. I have Ryan Tannehill's stat right here, right? Boom. Game 1, he threw for 198 yards and 3 interceptions, right? Game 2, he threw for 246 yards and 1 touchdown. Game 3, he threw for 104 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. So my thing is this, that if neither one of those guys can beat that out on your roster, then you don't have a quarterback. Then you have a bigger problem, right? And so that's exactly my take, DP. That wraps up Coach K's key thought, man. Listen, everybody tap into that. Tweet at me. Let me know if I'm on par, if I'm all the way off par on that conversation. But the Tennessee Titans, like I said, due to them not being in the media a lot, they're not being talked about a lot. But that is dysfunction, right? That's dysfunction at multiple levels, and it doesn't appear that they have a clear path, man. But that wraps up another episode of Locked On NFL Draft with your favorite dynamic duo. Yes, Damian Parsons and myself, Keith Sanchez, man. You know where to find us at. You can find me on Twitter at TheTalentCode, and you can find DP on Twitter, X Twitter at DP_NFL, man. And like we always say, man, shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us, man. We definitely appreciate it.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Like he said, thank y'all for being our everydayers. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. All right, get ready for a Thursday night football preview. Tap in with us tomorrow. We'll get into it, right? I think it's an NFC South, NFC North battle. So we'll be breaking down impact matchups to watch, right? All that good stuff. Biggest storylines going into that game, all that stuff. So tap in with us, giving our game predictions and whatnot. But like he said, man, follow us on Twitter, talk to us because we do talk back. Come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.